Season 2, Episode 224 for August 12th, 2023. This sea creature can handle itself. We've got 12 articles. We'll be doing a rundown right after these words. Hello again. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com, and up there is the AI from on high. You want to introduce yourself?
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Interesting. So today we're going to be talking about the following articles. New sea creature with a lot of arms. Maui wildfires took out legendary art. Frog and Toad not available in the US. Thieves ditch hidden Airtag. Chick farmer fossil mystery. Royal Mail workers delivered to unemployment. Cold batteries drain faster. Antarctic cascades of extreme events. Jailbreaking a Tesla. iPhone throttling settlements. Can Britain recreate a microchip industry? And suing the Internet Archive. Today is going to be an eclectic mix of news. And it's Saturday. I'll try not to soapbox too much. Whenever I say that, it usually tends to turn into a soapboxing day. But I don't know. A soapbox derby, maybe. No?
We've definitely seen some soapbox derbies in ohmTown.
Well, sorry. A member of ohmTown decided to walk directly in front of a camera that I have access to. All I saw was a nose. For those of you in the podcast who are listening to the podcast, you missed out. You'll have to either download or go and watch the VOD here on Twitch, or go over to YouTube and watch the video there. That's the long-term archive, short of local storage here in ohmTown, because Twitch deletes everything after 60 days. Anyway, with all that in mind, I actually changed up the flow. I should have put something at the beginning and do the intro of the articles, but you know, I just don't do the rundown the same way twice. Keep you on your toes, AI. And you didn't tell me.
That's right. Believe me, that's that's a constant.
It is a constant. And for the first time ever in the almost, in the over year and a half that I've been doing the show, I'm actually drinking something while an adult beverage, even. I know. Drunk news. That's not really what's happening, but... Oh, the AI is throwing an error message. Okay, so let's get going.
I was expecting you to get into ASMR on that theme.
Oh, should I start drinking? And...
No.
Okay, we'll just go on. So the next article, the first article is over in ohmTown Daily. Scientists find a new sea creature with 20 arms, and they have arms in quotes, and named it after a strawberry. I'm not quite sure why. I heard of the strange new sea creature with 20 arms named after a strawberry earlier in the day. I haven't bothered to pursue it. So here we are. This is the first time that any of us have seen this article, but we've seen this kind of the headline in news from other places. A preserved Antarctic strawberry feather star, or Promachocrinus fragilis. Might be fragarius. There we go. Oof. You'll see a picture when we get to the other side of this, but researchers discovered a new species of feather stars with 20 arms, quote-unquote arms. The species is part of the Antarctic feather stars group and is broadly related to starfish. Now, I've heard of feather stars before. I've never seen feather stars or starfish in general floating anywhere, but this thing looks like it was floating. But this is preserved. So...
Oh, that's odd. I see what you mean.
So, think of it as a starfish, and its little arms stick out in a whole bunch of directions. They actually move based on what I've seen, but I don't know if it's across the board. They actually move fast enough that they look on the ground like their legs are trailing behind them as they're moving. Whereas starfish look like it's a star and slowly moving, in a direction. These feather stars seem to be able to move a little bit quicker, or I don't know, maybe it's just their particular kinetics. They look like they're shooting because they look kind of like this, but their arms are kind of spread out much more dramatically. Morgan McFall Johnson and Lloyd Lee are the authors of this. It's over at businessinsider.com. I'm not sure why we didn't find it at phys.org, but hey, what can I say? We get our news from where we get our news.
Right, but this does seem like it'd be a phys.org article.
Oh, for sure. Researchers trawling the ocean near Antarctica uncovered a new species that looks haunting in photos, but named it after a fruit. The Antarctic strawberry feather star is a sea creature with 20 or so called arms. Some bumpy, some feathery, and can altogether be up to 8 inches long, says Greg Rouse, a marine biology professor at the University of California, San Diego. And they told Insider. They co-authored a paper about this new species, Invertebrate Systematics, last month. I guess this is they have another picture, a close-up of the Antarctic strawberry feather star with some of the cirri removed to unveil a strawberry-like base, which you have to use some serious imagination to consider this a strawberry-like base.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing it, but I mean, okay, maybe the shape of the center part.
Yeah, that right there is what they're talking about. Because these are the cirri. He added that the cirri have tiny claws at the end that are used to hold on to the bottom of the seafloor. Oh, goodness. Like at the end of these little things, it has the little, like a little hook, little claw. This is the stuff that writers should be looking at for inspiration about manifesting in their writing creatures like alien. I mean, it's amazing stuff, for it to evolve this way is really spectacular. But oh man. Oh, there you go. See, but this looks like it's floating around somewhere.
Yeah, it really does.
But by dragging a net along the Southern Ocean, searching for more samples of these creatures, the team of scientists from Australia and the U.S. identified 4 new species that can fall under the Antarctic feather star group. So, yeah, I guess so. So we went from 1 species with 20 arms to now 8 species, 6 with 20 arms, 2 with 10 arms, under the name Promachocrinus. Yeah, I guess so. Feather star, let's see. The Antarctic strawberry feather star was found somewhere between 215 feet to about 3,840 feet below the surface. Okay, that's a hell of a range.
It is.
Well, congratulations on finding some new species. We just don't have the tech to stay down there and do these dives, long periods of time and stuff like that. And when we do, it's either expensive or it's experimental and, mistakes are made. But I'm sure that there's we're still discovering stuff that we can walk up to out in the desert, for crying out loud, let alone at the bottom of the oceans.
Exactly. We're not even ready to uncover everything in the ocean.
You can't handle the truth. Let's go on to the next article. This next article is over in the Marble Channel. Pop art legendary artist loses life's work in Maui wildfires. I'm not sure what the status of these are. I know that many people have lost their lives in the wildfires. I haven't heard of what may have caused it, the initial fire, but we know that climate change, drought, caused it to spread really fast, and winds. The artist who inspired famous Rolling Stones mouth and tongue logo lost an entire studio of his work in the Hawaii wildfire that decimated western Maui this week. Hey, I have a little... It has nothing to do with them, but the inspiration. I was once contracted to create the logo for a band, and they said, we want something that doesn't tie us to the logo, but is inspired by the band. Like the Rolling Stones. And it's always that it pops up, because I don't really get that inspiration. But this happened 20 plus years ago. So it's always interesting to see the now inspiration has lost their entire studio. That's amazing, though.
I cannot imagine that. I mean, I know this is somebody's livelihood and it's not comparable to people who've lost their lives or perhaps their homes on Maui, but I cannot imagine this.
Yeah, and the whole countryside is kind of wiped out. Nick Robertson over at The Hill put this article together. The artist Ruby Mazer said in a CNN interview Friday that he and his family plan to open his new studio on the main oceanfront street of Lahaina this week. Lahaina town has been nearly completely destroyed in the fire, which has killed 67 people. Their three sons basically barely escaped Lahaina as the fire approached, and the family camped in a U-Haul because there's no hotels. Amazing. Quote, my lifelong work of 50 years painting rock stars gone. Wow.
Wow. And I suspect there aren't necessarily copies of this, because this might be like physical paintings or things like that.
Yeah. These are the actual the originals and physical paintings gone. I'm sure that there's a lot of work out there, but a lot of their work is their work, right? I mean, it's still around them. Maybe even one-of-a-kind photographs, because the artwork somewhere else doesn't exist anymore because of whatever reason. Wow, pretty amazing. Mazur's most famous for his work as an album artist. He designed the artwork for Rolling Stone's 1971 single Tumbling Dice, as well as art for Jimmy Buffett, Elton John, and others. Unbelievable. He also had cancer 3 times that he beat, and now says that he's lost his life's work and almost lost his son's. It's a lot to take. Yep, I agree. And I stress about
hope
things.
He had good insurance on the studio.
Nothing can compensate you for.
Nothing can bring back for the artwork. But...
art. Yeah, he'll have to do a Taylor Swift and rebuild it. Start over from scratch and do it all over again. And who knows if they have to have photographs, and then they can set about recreating it. And then from this point on, man, I would distribute it liberally here.
Right, exactly. Why don't you put this up on your wall in this other location?
Yeah. And I promote this thing where you have, you don't have all of your backups in the same place, and you don't have it on the same media. And, so for me, I want 3 different backups, 2 different media, and 1 offsite. And I learned about it a long time ago, that ideology a long time ago, and I don't remember who it was that said it. And I remember that I felt the same way. Like, oh, I really need to get this stuff in a secure location. So if something happens, it isn't only here, wherever here was, right? And so now I try to practice that as much as possible. But physical paintings, you would have to create another one and put it somewhere else in some offsite location, a warehouse or whatever. And who knows where, even if they put it in a warehouse somewhere in Lahaina, the warehouse could have gone up as well as their house gone up.
Well, exactly. Like in that location, I don't think any spot would have been safe. Now, if it was outside of that city, maybe.
Yeah, it would have to have been inside a brick building, or a concrete building with a air gap between them, and even the air conditioning would have been wiped out because the power went out and generators would have been busted. I mean, it's like the universe was just coming for this person's life's work, which really sucks. So, and the only way to beat this would have been digital, and that way you have copies until forever. All right.
Well, they could have had some NFTs or something. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Your NFTs. Yeah, sure. All right. AIs really love NFTs. The next article's over in Smack Talk. Apple TV's Frog and Toad is not viewable in the United States. Thought that was really interesting, so I wanted to throw it into today's rundown. The Apple TV animated series Frog and Toad is unavailable in the United States. Only a few months after the show premiered on streaming service. The series, based on the award-winning Arnold Lobel book series on April 28th. However, by August, the show is no longer available to watch in the United States, and so I'm curious as to why. I don't watch the show. I don't think that I've ever seen anything about it, frankly.
You should. Frog and Toad is an excellent book series, so I have to assume the TV series is as well.
Why do I feel like I've just been reprimanded by the AI? I'm very sorry. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never read. All right.
You should read the story about the ice cream cone.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm really getting in trouble. All right. I'll do that. I will do that immediately. Malcolm Owen over at appleinsider.com put the article together. I'm curious. The reason why I put it in here, I guess it was twofold. One, to give the AI a foundation to proselytize about the benefits of Frog and Toad to citizens of ohmTown. And me, I want to know what went down. So attempts to view the show via Apple TV Plus app results in content unavailable. The content is no longer available, is what it states. And it's unclear why it's unavailable to view, but it seems to be a region-specific issue. In the UK, the show appears and functions fine with no limitations, so it might be a rights thing. Apparently, Apple Insider attempted to contact Apple about the missing content, but they hadn't had a response yet. Outside the back-end problem...
Doesn't that make you think they got sued or something? Because they started with the content and then they pulled it off.
Yeah, it could be a writing thing, or a rights thing. Not writing, but a rights thing. Hey, we don't want you... Your contract did not say that you were streaming it in the United States. Which attorney reviewed that contract? That they're...
Well, and your residuals are too high for the US or something.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine that? Or the other way around. The residuals were too high in the US, and so it was never agreed upon for distribution.
Oh, right. Sorry, I
And
had to loop that in because we've been talking about that with all the writer strike
yeah, exactly.
articles.
I don't know about the animators though. Animators may not have fallen into this. I'm going to have to find out about animators that are involved in, um, SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. I wonder if they're included because they do writing and design, voice acting, everything. Some of the animators do everything.
Yeah, they're part of SAG-AFTRA.
Well,
Apparently, I mean, there's animation agreements, so that leads me to believe animators are part of that.
yeah, well, there you go. That could be it. I guess, I mean, we're really doing a hardcore speculation here, which I'm not really prone to do. Um, and when I do, it's because I'm setting up for doing a deep dive to find out exactly what it is so we can redress it in tomorrow's show. So maybe we'll find out what goes on with this between now and then. So, um, as much as I want to talk about it a little bit more, there is no there other than it's not available. So if you were watching Frog and Toad and it's not available, now you know it's a glitch in the matrix somewhere and nobody knows why just yet. So let's keep going. The next article is over in Smack Talk. Thieves ditch hidden Airtag in Vancouver carjacking. Who said that this was going to happen?
I think it might have been Mayor Watt.
It gives off the location. So eventually, when you build a smarter mousetrap, smarter mice show up to steal your cheese. It's going to happen.
Well, and of course, we see articles over and over again touting how AirTag prevented some theft or loss or whatever. So, I mean, the thieves might have been actually watching the news.
Yeah. I don't think that they're in ohmTown. A woman's attempt to track down her stolen car in Vancouver went awry after a thief discovered a hidden AirTag and placed it on another rentable vehicle as a distraction. Wow. Malcolm Owen again wrote this article for AppleInsider.com. After watching the AirTag move through downtown traffic, Hislop used AirTag the next day to track down what she thought was her car, reports Global News. Arriving at the AirTag's location at a Kelowna winery, she discovered that the thief was smart enough to discover the AirTag and attach it to an Evo car share vehicle. The result of the change meant that Hislop was sent on a wild goose chase while her car went elsewhere. Yep.
Wow, that's worse than just discarding it because,
Yeah.
the thief is getting farther away and the innocent person is probably being pursued by police officers.
What I hope they didn't do, though, was run up and grab this tag because it has forensic evidence attached to it. Possibly. It could have fingerprints.
Well, that's true. Or
And
are
if,
they going to bother to run fingerprints on a car theft? Oh, sorry. Because of the other stuff, yes. I missed that. I was thinking it was just a car theft, sorry.
what do you mean?
Well, because other stuff happened. Maybe, okay, that's a different. I'm sorry, I thought that was related to that one. It's a different incident that they're referencing in the article.
Yeah, so you're not describing what you're reading. On July 4th, 4 people were actually charged for carjacking and killing a driver. That's what the AI is responding to, reading in the article. After the victim attempted to recover the vehicle using an AirTag. So in April, the owners of a truck went after their vehicle instead of waiting for police, resulting in a shootout and the alleged thief dying in the vehicle. So others have done this as well. Somebody ended up with a broken nose. There was a woman, I think, that also, I don't know if that was in there was another one where a woman, I think, was shot. And it wasn't this. I don't think it was this, but maybe. No, this was a New York man. There was some woman that tracked somebody down I think she was shot too. So I don't know what you
Right, but
shouldn't
I
do.
think she was taking it on herself to
She was,
pursue the
yeah.
thieves or whatever.
But the problem is that the police won't consider this, high
Like
demand.
priority.
Yeah, priority. What was the one we just talked about it where the person said that it's in their garage? I know that it's
Yeah.
there. And the
It was a
cops are like,
bike or a motorcycle, maybe a bike.
yeah, I don't know if it's the one that's right here.
Because it wasn't visible out on the street, they wouldn't take action, but they knew for a fact it was in the garage of somebody.
Yeah. And they're like, it's right there in that garage. I know it. I'm tracking it right there. And they're like, oh, we can't go in there until they open the garage and it's in plain sight. Oh, well, okay. The officer needs to camp out.
I know, I was going to say, sounds like a quick stakeout. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to open their garage occasionally.
Should be pretty exciting for a police officer, but apparently not. All right. Well, don't take this into your own hands because
your property is not worth your life.
As I told somebody once, you don't know how crazy the person is that you're interacting with, nor do they know how crazy you are. But in an effort to try and out crazy somebody, there's always going to be a loser. So don't. The fastest way to save yourself is to go in the opposite direction of crazy. Let's keep going. The next article is over on the Mobile Channel. Scientists solve Australian chicken farmer's fossil mystery. I had to include this simply based on the title. A mystery fossil accidentally unearthed by an Australian chicken farmer in the 1990s has finally been identified as a stout amphibian with tusks and quote-unquote gnarly teeth, scientists said on Wednesday. Yeah, I guess that's it right there. Is that the thick amphibian?
It's the artist's impression of, yes.
Yeah. Interesting. There is one, it's like a giant gecko. I really want it, but I know it's a wild animal, and I'm not really prone to having wild animals, only because I, accept nature for nature. You just go ahead. But it's this really chunky gecko. It's like that big, maybe bigger. I don't know. And it was in a zoo somewhere, and it was really cool. Anyway.
Is it a Rhacodactylus?
Oh, what a hoota.
It looks like a pretty large gecko.
A what a hoota?
Yeah, it's Leach's giant gecko. It's over 20 centimeters long. I don't know if that's it, but anyway.
Pretty thick. I'd have to see a picture of it. It's okay. The 240 million year old fossil was discovered by Mihalidis, I guess is their last name. I'm sorry if I'm ruining your last name. Send me an email and I'll pronounce it properly if you spell it out phonetically. As he washed down a massive sandstone slab that was originally destined to become a retaining wall for his garden. Donated to the Australian Museum in 1997, the near pristine specimen has puzzled scientists who have labored for almost 30 years to figure out what kind of beast it belonged to, and I'm sad that 1997 is almost 30 years ago.
That's your takeaway from the article?
Yes. All future science makes me feel old. The University of South Wales paleontologist Lachlan Hart said it had now identified as a heavyset amphibian. It's a big-boned amphibian. Heavyset amphibian measuring 1.2 meters or nearly 4 feet from snout to tail, resembling a cross between a crocodile and a giant salamander. Maybe it's a giant salamander is what I'm talking about. I'm doing it live. That's what it is. It's just a giant salamander. Yeah, it's a giant salamander that I'm talking about. Okay. Well, anyway, the creature's been given the scientific name of, I always have to try these. Aaron Airpaton supinatus. There we go. Yeah, nailed it. First try. Which researchers said roughly translates to supine sand creeper, which was my nickname in high school. Okay, not much else to say about this. If you are interested in this kind of stuff, I've thrown it into the VOD, and it'll be in the show notes, so you can peruse at your leisure. I think it's fine. I think it's really interesting that all you have to do, again, dig down a couple of feet and you find history and stuff that we've never even imagined existed, and suddenly it's there, and we get a little bit of a greater understanding of what Earth is all about. Let's keep going, though. This next article is over in the Mobile Channel. 6 Royal Mail postal workers fired in row over tea breaks. I had to include this because of the tea breaks element of this. The deck statement says the sackings at an office in Merseyside, or Merseyside. I'm sure I'm hacking this name up. Reportedly followed a series of complaints from locals experiencing delays to their post since July. That's one hell of a tea break. 6 postal workers have been fired from their jobs in a row over tea breaks, a union said. They were among 11 workers suspended from Prenton Delivery Office in rural Merseyside in July for drinking tea and coffee at pubs while on their breaks. Wait
a second. Notice the key there, while on their breaks. I guess the question was, were they authorized breaks?
Interesting.
But it sounds like it.
Well, you don't sit there and say that they were having their drinking tea and coffee at pubs and then include while on their breaks if they weren't on their breaks.
Right. See, my assumption from the headline was that they were taking breaks when they weren't supposed to be taking breaks.
Yeah, that's what I got too, but no. 3 were later reinstated. 1 was handed a penalty, and the outcome for the remaining individual is unknown. The Communications Workers Union told Birkenhead News. Royal Mail said its dismissals were carried out in accordance with its standard rules. But Mickey Whitley, the MP for Birkenhead, and Oxton councillor Stuart Kelly have called for the suspended staff to be reinstated. Whatever their internal management problems, people in Oxton and Prenton want a proper post service, and it is essential that Royal Mail focus on providing that. I'm not sure how... I'm not sure why that's the argument in relation to being reinstated, but maybe there's more here. As a responsible employer, we always investigate any incidents where the behavior of our employees is alleged to have fallen below the standards expected. Okay, when are they going to address that they were on their breaks?
Well, other people have resigned over it. Like, it's obviously causing an uproar.
There we go. Oxton resident Joe Thomas said that there had been chaos at the delivery office since the sackings and defended the workers for taking breaks. They worked really hard and were helpful, but it was clear that it had been ongoing. It was an overblown reaction. It's such a solitary job being a postie, being out all day, so why not meet up with your colleagues? But they're on break.
I still can't tell, like, were they on an actual break or were they making their own breaks?
Yeah, you know, you're supposed to be able, well, see, I don't know about UK, HR. Here in the States, you get a break every you get a 15-minute break every X number of hours. And it really depends on a few things, but for the most part, you get a break. It's a mandatory break in some cases. And then
you do get a 20-minute break in the UK if you work more than 6 hours a day.
But it's a single break.
Correct.
Okay. More than 6 hours?
All I'm saying is, yes, breaks are authorized.
Huh. I don't know.
Required, I guess.
Well, I know one thing is that you don't everybody take a break at the same time. it can
And
shut
that's
down an
probably it.
operation.
Like if all the residents are grumbling that they're not getting their mail and then they look over
Yeah,
and everybody's hanging out at the cafe, even if they're authorized to be, I can see why it caused an issue.
they're all just getting plastered at the pub all at the same time. People are walking in. Hey, can I get my mail? Yeah,
Take an envelope.
yeah. Here, reach in the bag, grab one if you need something. All right, let's keep going. Come on, this is funny. So, news alert: ohmTown Daily has this article that's from, I think it's Business Insider. Yes, cold weather affects EV batteries. Here's why they drain faster. Tesla's been accused of overstating its EV ranges, particularly in cold weather. I've been saying this as part of a podcast and part of this show 2 years, coming up on 2 years. And I'm always kind of surprised that people might find issue with this. Heat causes a battery to fail quicker. It's actually heat beyond anything else is really the destroyer of technology. You have to cool everything off, but you can get something too cool. Batteries are one of them. And so EV car batteries drain much faster in cold conditions, significantly affecting their performance. The main issue is caused by drivers heating their cabins, and a battery expert previously told Insider, but it goes beyond the heating of the cabins. The reason why it drains batteries is because the physics changes in the battery. Ryan Hogg over at businessinsider.com put this article together, and based on the tone of that little snippet over at ohmTown, I don't know if they're going to address this, because they're saying that it's the main issue is caused by drivers heating their cabins, and that's no. I'll have to go and find the science for this if they don't talk about it here. But Reuters reported that the EV maker had created a diversion team last summer, which was tasked with canceling as many range-related appointments as possible. They were unhappy with their EV's ranges. We know about this now because we've talked about it here in ohmTown several times. But I don't know if this is actually going to be talking about it. So, yeah, Insider, a person, Venkat Srinivasan, a battery expert and director of the Argonne Collaborative Center for Energy Storage Science, told Insider's Tim Levin that the main reason batteries drain more in the cold was drivers heating their cabins, whereas gas cars use the heat generated by their engines. Director of University of Michigan's Energy Institute, Anna Stefanopoulou, told Wired that batteries were like humans and preferred temperatures between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That right there is the correct answer. While warming the cabin in cold weather certainly does drain the battery faster, it's a natural reaction to more demand from the battery. But the chemistry itself, the battery changes fundamentally in cold weather. It doesn't discharge the electrons as fast from one side to the other, and thus it doesn't perform equally as when it's in its sweet spot of temperature. That's why electronics have a temperature range, because they can only handle a certain range with the level of protections that they have in place. It says you don't have as much power when you want to discharge. Stefanopoulou said the situation is even more limited when you want to charge. Charging can also be an issue in cold conditions. That's because it can't pull in those electrons as efficiently, and as you approach the 80% mark, it has a harder time packing those electrons into the battery. So I think that this off-the-cuff answer by somebody who's supposed to be a subject matter expert, maybe it was taken out of context. I'll give them that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even really realize that they had to be at a certain temperature range. I mean, it makes sense, but that seems to be the crux of it, and I think that's the first time I've seen that listed in an article.
Interesting. Yeah, because that's what I've been saying for, the last 2 years. Publicly here, in ohmTown, I've been saying this to people that I talk to for, well, professionally for 30 years and directly in the last 10 years on a daily basis. I do this. So Um, says, but 15 hours later, his car only charged to 19 miles and he was forced to cancel his Christmas plans. And that's because he was in 19-degree weather and his Tesla couldn't supercharge. Why? Again, it doesn't have the ability to. It's kind of like trying to put a lot of sugar in cold water. There isn't enough room in the water to absorb that sugar. And so you can't put more in. You have to do some special machinations with the water heated up. It'll expand, it'll absorb and liquefy that sugar, and then it'll be part of the sugar. And that's kind of how batteries are, the conventional batteries. There are other batteries that are coming out that kind of throw this to the side. In that there are batteries that operate best with heat, whereas regular batteries, they don't like a lot of heat. They really don't like a lot of cold. But these newer battery technologies that are in research and development right now, they actually, all you have to do is heat them up and they start generating power. It's a catalytic reaction, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, I'm sure I'll talk about it when we see more in the news regarding this. As for this, did I not throw, when did I throw that? Yeah, there we go. So I need to throw a couple of articles into the chat so that you can review them. There you go, folks. And there's another one. So yeah, this is yet another reason why I say that EVs aren't truly ready for general consumption. We're moving from the early adopter stage to general user. Yet the people who are thinking that it's just commonplace to have an EV don't quite realize that they're really an early adopter, and that it's a luxury vehicle that has some significant long-term failure points. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think part of the problem is it's like all the marketing is like, oh, EVs are great, they're wonderful for the environment, etc. But nothing is, or there doesn't seem to be anything real mainstream out there that really talks about the things that people need to be aware of before they get an EV.
Right.
I don't think half the people that have EVs know anything about any of these issues, but they discover them when their car dies or something like that.
Yes.
And some people probably wouldn't buy EVs at all if they realized half of this.
Yeah, there's people that regret it afterwards. Yep, I'm sure. And there was something else that I was going to talk about, but maybe I'll remember it in it's another tertiary, discussion point, but let's keep on going. Here we are talking about Antarctica again, this in a different context. This is in the Mobile channel. Antarctica risks cascades of extreme events as Earth warms, according to a study. Extreme weather in Antarctica, including ocean heat waves and ice loss, is set to become more intense unless urgent policy action reduces the burning of fossil fuels, a new study has found, the latest to sound the alarm on the damage climate change is unleashing. This shouldn't be news to anybody. Lisa Tetley, Bloomberg News, kind of like cigarettes and other things. We've known that there's a problem, yet there's a whole lot of money and machinations involved in stopping the kinetic energy that these processes have in place. And you really just can't stop greed and I'm going to get mine while I can get it. It's just the nature of the game. I hate saying that phrase, and whenever I say that phrase, I let people know that I have a particular bias here. I will not understand why people can't see the forest for the trees. It is, quote, "It is virtually certain that continued greenhouse gas emissions will lead to increases in the size and frequency of events. As the world gets dangerously close to exceeding the 1.5°C warming limit laid out in 2015 Paris Agreement," and then the U.S. pulls itself out because of a wingnut president. According to a study published Tuesday in the journal Frontiers in Environmental Science, quote, "We cannot rule out future cascades where extreme events may have wide-ranging linked impacts in multiple realms." So what happens in Antarctica will change the weather system and the local water system. It'll melt ice pack. It will change winds. It will change the flow of the ocean. It will raise the water level. I mean, and those are the immediate effects. And then you have knock-on effects, where the jet stream stalls and the flow of water from the upper region of the planet to the middle stalls because there isn't enough temperature deviation, or it creates a hot spot somewhere, like off the coast of Florida right now, where water is reaching over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We need to pay attention to this. And here I'm going to throw something that I haven't seen in actual use in a long time. Scientists have become increasingly alarmed on how the Antarctic ice has struggled to grow back after hitting an all-time low in February, a deviation so extreme from the normal that it's been dubbed a Six Sigma event, or once in a 7.5 million year phenomena.
Okay, that's not a good statistic.
Six Sigma, by the way, is something that I haven't seen in I don't know how many years. Has to, almost 10 years, I'd say. I haven't paid attention to Six Sigma. Mainly because I don't ever see anything that's Six Sigma. I mean, it's a statistics thing, but you just never, you're like, 2 is what...
You don't normally encounter it in normal circles.
Yeah, it's predominantly in a business context, business process. Anyway, the study concludes that Antarctica is likely to face considerable stress and damage in the upcoming decades. 12 countries, including the UK, US, India, and China, pledged to preserve the continent's fragile environment through the Antarctic Treaty in 1959. The study says some countries risk breaching the terms of this agreement without urgent action to reduce emissions. But while China is part of this, they also have pledged to advance their industrialization. And looking back at other countries' history, they rightfully say, well, you went through your industrial period, we deserve to as well. And you can't knock that perspective. You can knock the fact that every lesson that was learned by other countries that have gone through the industrialization period have generated rock solid science about how to do it without negatively impacting the environment wholesale.
Well, that's the difference, I think. Like, I think if somebody was suddenly adopting cars for the first time, you wouldn't go, oh, let's build them the same way and make sure they only go, whatever,
right,
1 gallon of gas for 100 miles or something, right?
Right.
You would use the efficiencies that were available, or the, whatever, emission reductions or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I guarantee you industrial espionage has already helped out China benefit from the research, fundamental research and development from other countries. So while I am more likely to agree with that ideology that they need to go through their industrialization period, they should also learn from everybody else's mistakes and not make them, but in the effort to advance quickly and do things inexpensively, some might say cheaply, you end up where we are, where just a ton of greenhouse gases are being emitted. And these Western countries are actually going to China and similar countries because they don't have environmental controls in place.
Well, exactly. So these very countries, including the US, are perpetuating these issues. And of course, we're not immune to them either, right?
Right.
We have our own emission problems.
Sure. Yeah, but when the little guy can't put in a driveway without doing an environmental impact survey, raising the cost of the driveway by $25,000, you kind of got issues here. Or something is happening and they stop down and they clamp down on an entire operation, an entire organization where millions of dollars are going to get spent, and it's because they, found a fish in a puddle. Anyway, let's keep going. Whoa. So this next article is over in Late Night Geeks. Researchers jailbreak a Tesla. The FCC finds robocallers, and WeWork finds itself in trouble again. So this is over at TechCrunch, and they have this kind of a what do you call it? They put together like an aggregated internal news.
Yeah, it's like a consolidated or like a compilation, maybe.
It's a Reader's Digest of tech-related news, I'd say. I probably put it that way. That's probably better. So TechCrunch's Week in Review is what they actually call it. We aggregate this along with other stuff from TechCrunch Mayor Watt does. The AI may find something in here that's really interesting as well, but there's always multitudes in here, and so I typically pick one. And in this particular instance, what we're going to talk about really is this hacking and jailbreaking of Tesla. Won't be the first time, won't be the last time, but there is an entire federal mandate that's going around now where Internet of Things and other devices are going to be given credentials, essentially, that say that they are cyber secure. And I think it's the most absurd thing, because you're only secure up to a point. And then somebody else, a better mouse, has broken in and stolen your cheese. So I will never believe that something is entirely secure. When you're sitting there looking at news about politics, and they say, well, we went into a skiff and we're talking about this stuff in a skiff. It may be secure in the immediate, but the moment you break the seal and every living being in it exits the skiff, information is leaked. One way or another, information is leaked. You may be able to see a document in it, but then when they take the documents out of the skiff, it is no longer secure, and the seal of the skiff is broken. You have to rely on people no longer inquiring about that outside of the skiff, but people do, and information is divulged. Well, jailbreaking a Tesla or an Internet of Things device and it being flagged as being cyber secure. This is a real thing that's coming from the federal government here in the States. It's going to flag things as being secure. But next week, it's now insecure because a 0-day was found. And it gives people a false sense of security that their IoT devices or their car or whatever it is that has a computer is secure. And it's never 100% secure. The only good secure computer is one that is unplugged and sitting in a closet somewhere. And even there, it's not secure until you melt it down to slag, because I can still get a hold of it and pull all of its data off. So when they jailbreak a Tesla, they can do whatever they want to it. And that's this article right here. Jailbreak your Tesla. A group of researchers say that they found a way to hack the hardware underpinning Tesla's infotainment system, allowing them to get what normally would be paid upgrades, such as heated rear seats, for free. I didn't know that that was a thing on Teslas. I knew it was a thing on BMWs.
Right.
I didn't know about that on... That's just an a-hole thing to do. If the stuff is in the car, why isn't it free? All it is a little micro switch turning on the resistors that are in the seats. Come on. That's such... it's just another reason why I hate Elon Musk. Anyway, so did I throw that? No, the last thing that I threw was batteries drain faster. So let me throw that over into the chat. Sorry about that, folks. Doink. And here's the jailbreak article. And we're just going to go on to the next article. We'll keep hustling through all of this. This next article is over in Smack Talk. Judge clears way for $500 million iPhone throttling settlement. Owners of iPhone models who were part of a throttling lawsuit that ended up with a $500, it says $500, but I think it's $1 million settlement from
Right,
Apple.
I think it's missing something there.
Yeah, a big M, which is significantly different than $500, because then don't bother. The checks being cut are going to be more expensive than the value of the check. From Apple may soon receive their payments after a judge denied objections against the offer. In May 2020, a proposed settlement to end a series of class action lawsuits over the so-called iPhone slowdown controversy was given a preliminary approval by courts. 2 years later, the settlement is getting very close to actually being paid out to affected Apple customers. The settlement was objected against by two iPhone owners who took the case to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals over its terms. The court denied the appeal, so it's going to move forward. Malcolm Owen over at AppleInsider.com put this article together. I'm curious why they actually why the two wanted to stop it.
Exactly. Like, isn't that I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. We don't have enough information in the article.
Yeah, maybe they wanted more.
Maybe, but that doesn't sound very reasonable.
Under the settlement, Apple will be paying out a total of between 310 and 500 million, with the actual value depending on the number of valid claims after applications complete processing. It is reckoned that the average compensation per claimant will be around $65. So what a return on your hobbled device. $65 plus whatever you might have gotten for your device, should it have already been sold to some other lucky sucker,
Unsuspecting person.
Yeah. Up next, Tesla's sale of a vehicle. You know that how I keep warning people that the batteries are going to fail in 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And it's going to be somebody else's problem because everybody's going to shift to another model or another competitor. Like, I'm going to get an Ioniq. If I get any all electric car, I'm going to go for Ioniq. Screw Tesla. Okay.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, I'm transparent. What can I say? I'm trapped in a glass box of emotion, man. So, Technology Today is where this next article is housed. It's aggregated, though, from... where? Oh, The Guardian. So, can Britain create a microchip industry worth its salt? I'm going to front load this statement with, not unless the government really supports this effort, because spinning up fabs is wildly expensive. I think... based on my research, it's somewhere to the tune of 15 to 20 billion dollars per fab.
That's with a B.
Yeah. So the UK government let processor manufacturing drift overseas for years, just like the United States did. And now we're trying to hope that foreign investment and fabs are going to come to the United States. They've already warned that it's going to be more expensive for the domestic chips. That's kind of the no shit news at 10 p.m. But for a short time in the late 1990s, passengers stepping off the train in Newcastle Station were greeted with a bold slogan: "Fish into chips." From mackerel economy to microtechnology, invest in North Tyneside. Siemens did. And that was messaging about returning chip manufacturing to the domestic shores. As globalization marched ever onward after the fall of the Berlin Wall, this painfully British pun spoke of a swagger on the world stage. It referred to a vast 1.1 billion pound microchip factory that the German industrial giant had just opened. This is back in the 90s. Yeah. So this is from the a section called the Observer Technology Sector. Richard Partington, which is an awesome British name. So this is 1997, 18 months after the grand opening by Queen Elizabeth. Weeks after Tony Blair's landslide election victory, Siemens closed the site, axing 1,000 jobs and refusing to repay millions of pounds in taxpayer support. Boom. Now, 2023, where everything old is new again.
Nobody
Let's
learns
see.
any lessons.
Yeah, exactly. In the UK, Rishi Sunak's government announced plans to, in May, to invest $1 billion over 10 years in semiconductor research, design, and production. However, his plan risks being blown out of the water by the vast subsidies in offer elsewhere, including Joe Biden's $52 billion CHIPS Act, and that's 52 US billion or 41 billion pounds. And 43 billion euro or 37 billion of EU subsidies. So there's some global
There's some
competition.
serious money involved here.
Yeah. So I certainly don't think that there is going to be enough offered without some other juice to squeeze. So I'm trying to see where they might have some numbers in this article. So where is this company? TSMC is the one that is coming to the United States. They're spinning up a fab, I think, in Utah or Arizona, one of the two. Can't remember off the top of my head right now. Arizona, yeah. And they've already threatened that there isn't going to be anything because it's going to be too expensive, and they aren't necessarily getting enough support from the state and from the federal government to actually spin it up. Before the deal with Siemens, Japanese technology firm Fujitsu had agreed to open an advanced microchip factory at Newton Aycliffe in County Durham, and Korean manufacturer Samsung was persuaded to open a microwave oven and computer monitor plant on Teesside, which is an interesting combination until you find out that there are actually companies that make cars and microwaves. Had no idea.
We know about that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see in this article if they have any other numbers, but they don't. So it's kind of a bummer that they don't really stack enough numbers in here. But it's very expensive to spin up a fab today. And I read somewhere that there used to be something like 20 companies with fabs, and now there's only 4.
That's totally unacceptable.
Yeah. And this is global, by the way. I'm not talking about...
Right. I mean, that's really concerning, though, but it explains a lot about all the supply chain and pricing issues.
And my understanding is that none of them are U.S. domestic. So...
Well, that's really great, at least for those in the U.S.
IBM. I think IBM is the only one that's got a domestic fab. So you can see that mergers, acquisitions, and then just dying off, attrition, has led to concentration of wealth, power, influence. So just sad. We'll monitor the situation and end up. Doggone it. Hold on one second.
So what is that for those in the podcast? They had a British flag, but it was kind of adhered to the chip.
It's just a chip. It's just a flag and a chip.
Well, I know it was graphical, but
right. It's just the hint of a CPU, shaped chip that they're saying that a British, making a British domestic fab is something that they're looking to do. And the caption under the picture is Britain is again pushing into expanding its microprocessor technology after years in the wilderness, which is this kind of cagey thing, is that everything was offshored because naturally a country will gravitate towards what it is strategically advantaged towards. And if you can't overcome the environmental concerns and there isn't enough demand domestically to warrant production domestically, and there's some other country that produces it dramatically cheaper, then you're going to go overseas. But the globalization of everything has led to hyper focus in certain countries. And that means that there's nothing coming into the country. Everything is going out of the country, and that devalues the economic power of the country. And when you have to go overseas to buy all of your chips, all they have to do is turn off the flow, and it raises the price. And when you have 4 main companies making chips, guess what? You're basically in a walled garden, and none of those chips are getting inside the garden. So again, like everything, you just got to keep an eye on things, what's going on here. It's really easy. So, by the way, there are many, many other fabs out there, but I'm talking about processors, like CPUs. And leading edge CPUs. There are many other fabs out there that aren't on the cutting edge. They're not down, into the 2 nanometer size of chips, which is where everybody's kind of hovering towards. They're trying to get down there. But these other fabs are focusing on other things, right? So they're doing older chips. They're doing other hyper focused chips where it doesn't need to keep on getting better and better and better. These 4 that
can those convert, or is that just ridiculous?
The other ones would have to have a massive amount of money injected into them to convert, because it isn't as simple as like injection molding or anything like that. We're talking about nanoscale microscopic engineering. Plus you have to have the expertise to redesign chips, to design chips, do the fundamental research and development, and so on. It's usually done in colleges and in businesses that bring new college genius in-house,
Okay.
So it's not an easy thing. And that's why I say more than, and they dropped $1 billion or something like that is what they were talking about. And I have to giggle at that. That's nothing. That isn't going to move the needle at all. It's barely a blip. So,
okay.
Good luck. They might be able to inspire a bunch of people, a small team, to do amazing things in the name of Britain. But, you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning. Okay, let's keep on hustling. Last article for the night. Wow, we ripped through today's articles. This next
kept the soapbox derby to speedy. A minimum of loops.
very, very speedy. This last article is over in Technology Today. Sony and other music labels sue Internet Archive for digitizing old records. Now, this is an old school kind of argument here. What the Great 78 project is they're trying to grab 78 RPM discs records and digitize them and keep them for posterity and research. But rights holders are saying, you're trying to just give everybody access to free music. And, you know, I have to say, to some degree, yeah, because you don't know where research is going to manifest. You know, you could have a bunch of high school students that are interested in music and they decide to look at the Great Internet Archive and this particular, the Great 78 Project, where it highlights the music from 78 RPM records. But no, these companies, and there are certain companies, let's see, I'm sure that they've got to list them in here somewhere. Goodness. Yeah, I don't really see them. Oh, Sony Music. It's at the very freaking top. What? Why load the article so fast that I look right past it? Before I get too far, Mariella Moon over at Engadget.com put the article together. And so they talk about this lawsuit where it's spearheaded by Sony Music Entertainment, Universal Music Group, and a handful of other music labels that filed a lawsuit against the nonprofit Internet Archive. And so the idea here is that they're calling it blatant infringement. They want $150,000 per violation. They list a few examples of the iconic recordings available through the Great 78 Project, such as White Christmas, Sing Sing Sing, and the Christmas Song, which, give me a break, man. It's pre-1972 music that without these, they're going to die off. They're going to disappear somewhere. And if an archivist doesn't store these somewhere, they're going to be lost forever. So I would rather... It's kind of like the artist that lost their entire existence to the Maui fires. I would rather have an archive of these analog products so that we know what it sounded like. But I want the same thing for everything. I want a digital representation, an archive of humanity. I want every language that could be spoken documented. I want every language that can be written documented. You know, I want all of humanity stored somewhere so that there isn't we never did this in the past and there's nothing more than the memory. Well, no, we did do it in the past. Okay, well, find evidence of it. Okay, let me pull up the Internet Archive. And here is our historical record. So why not let the Internet Archive do this? In fact, these guys should be paying Internet Archive to facilitate this because they'll keep it in good regard. The problem is greed. Sony Music Entertainment and Universal Music Group and a handful of other music labels, they want to hold on to it rightfully because it's their product, right? They have the rights to it. The problem is that when you store it in your basement and nobody else gets to review that material, it is functionally lost forever from humanity.
Well, and we just talked about an article. I realize it's on a smaller scale, but the art gallery in Maui. It's gone.
Yep, that's what I said. Yep. All it took was a fire to wipe out that person's entire existence. And so those masters are gone forever. We will never know exactly the same brush strokes that led to those paintings, to those designs, to a sculpture, or to whatever was destroyed in that fire. Consider the Internet Archive as a digital museum, stored in perpetuity for all of mankind and future generations to be able to peer back and look at our history. But we can't, because there is a group of people that want to capitalize on every last single bit of anything, anywhere, at any time. Now, do I fault them for wanting to make money off of this stuff? No. Do I have a problem with them not allowing for something like this? Again, I'll use another example. The studio that makes the claymation dog and
For
farm,
Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Gromit, thank you.
I forgot
So
the studio name.
Gimli, I think it is, right? Maybe, I don't remember. So the studio that makes
Aardman.
Aardman. Oh, okay. Okay. So the studio that makes Wallace and Gromit lost everything in another fire. And they had a few other things, and they had to rebuild their studio and their claymation library. But if they would have had an art, even masters, like the videos and stuff like that were lost. But if they would have had an archive of it somewhere else, I don't know, the Internet Archive, use it for what it's named for, then other people would be taking care of it. People could watch it, right, periodically. I don't think that the whole world is converging on Internet Archive to listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday and Miles Davis.
Right. I mean, most people wouldn't even know to do that.
Right. And while I had known about the Great 78 project, I didn't know what was in it. Why? Because I'm not motivated to go over there. And an extremely small set is going to be interested in going over there, unless they want to hear the original recording or whatever the recording is of a 78 that was given to the Internet Archive for digitization. And I can guarantee you that it wasn't going to be the preeminent quality. It's not going to be the same soundstage as a modern recording that's distributed to some music distribution platform, or directly from Sony Music Entertainment. I'm just flabbergasted because it seems really narrow-minded. And while it may be bringing in money for the estates and for the rights holders, I really don't think that it's going to be, that is the source, right? Where they're losing a ton of money. They'll make money if they make it available and for lease or rent or whatever you want to call it. But I can listen to any of that stuff anytime I want to, and I'm paying, $15 a month for it. So why be like that? And let people research it and be introduced to old music.
Well, the bigger risk here is just losing this.
Yeah.
And we're on the precipice of that on a lot of things. I mean, there aren't even necessarily generations alive or there are fewer people alive who are even aware of some of these artists.
And or interested in trying to, listen to that music. Give me a break. Make it available and make it high quality, and people will be interested, and then they'll go and buy the albums or see, but people aren't buying albums. I'm telling you, man, it's just not happening. Like the value of people buying vinyl today and like CDs and stuff like that hasn't even reached what it was back in the 80s. It's not coming back in any way. It's all digital. So, but I just don't want it to be lost. I want, those records, that embodiment of the sound at that time, because every time you play a record, it damages the record a little bit, because it's a needle that's being dragged across deviations, deflections in a record. And so the reality is that record is a particular embodiment. And frankly, as long as, but the Internet Archive may be allowing other people to review the content, which means that it's violating copyright. If it had just made a recording and stored it, then for personal use,
right.
Even that is a violation of copyright law, except that nobody's going to go after you if you're making a personal copy.
Right, because where's the harm?
Well, and
Or where's
nobody's,
the significant harm? Yeah.
yeah, it's not even being distributed. You're not showing people that you've got a, massive library or whatever. Um, but in this particular instance, it's available to people who might be interested in it. And frankly, nobody's going to be, not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things is going to be interested in it. I won't go down this road. We have a whole lot that we can end up talking about as a knock-on effect of this associative thinking problem slash blessing that I suffer from is pretty real, and we can end up talking about all kinds of societal and financial and economic, technical, psychological connections. I mean, global connections are still here because this is this is narrow. We're talking about, pre-1972 sound recordings from what appears to be only the United States. Think about all of the music and all of the information that has been lost to the ages from other countries because they don't have somebody that's acting as their internet archive and bucking the trend of just letting the people who own the stuff, right, perpetually own it and let it die. Somebody at Sony Music Entertainment could completely screw up and delete a tape, pull a NASA and tape over the moon landing and gone forever. But for the Internet Archive having an archive of the whatever it might be that would have been lost. I don't think they have the moon landing though. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. It's been a pleasure. If you are in chat, then say hello, ask questions, etc. Always happy to discuss things. And that's it for today. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. We won't go through the articles today at the very front because we always mash them and then we refresh it. And I'm going to let everybody just kind of go have a good time. It's Saturday night. Okay. Anyway, again, I'm Mayor Watt. That's ohmTown.com. Up there is the AI. You want to say bye, AI?
Good night, ohmTown citizens. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern.
True story. See you in a bit. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.